The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and defeat. Commander Jake Morrison knelt beside the fallen Valinian princess, his combat armor still smoking from the plasma exchange that had ended the 3-year war mere hours ago. She was smaller than he expected, her silver skin pale beneath the emergency lights, her breathing shallow. "Sir, the Valinian fleet has broadcast unconditional surrender," his lieutenant reported through the comm. "They're requesting permission to retrieve their royal family." Jake looked down at Princess Lyra, third daughter of the Valinian emperor, commander of the northern offensive that had claimed 17 human colonies. Her uniform was torn, revealing burns across her torso where his final volley had struck her command deck. She had refused to abandon her ship, even as it broke apart around her. "Tell them negative," Jake said quietly. "I'll bring her myself." The lieutenant's silence spoke volumes. "Sir, protocol dictates." "I know what protocol dictates, Harris. But we're not starting peace by letting their princess bleed out in a cell while lawyers argue jurisdiction." Jake disconnected before the objection could continue. Lyra's eyes flickered open, pure gold irises struggling to focus. "You should have let me die with my ship." "Probably," Jake admitted. "But humans have this annoying habit of saving lives, even when it's inconvenient. Your species is illogical. You're not the first to mention it." Jake gathered her carefully, surprised at how light she was, despite standing nearly his height. Valinians were adapted for low-gravity worlds, their bones hollow like ancient earth birds. She stiffened in his arms, pride warring with agony. "I can walk." "Sure you can. Right after you explain how you're going to do that with a shattered femur." Her jaw clenched, but she said nothing. Jake carried her through the corridors of his flagship, past rows of human soldiers who snapped to attention and Valinian prisoners who watched with expressions ranging from confusion to something that might have been hope. The hangar bay was chaos. Hundreds of Valinian soldiers sat in organized groups, disarmed but unharmed, receiving medical treatment from human field doctors. The sight seemed to disturb Lyra more than her injuries. "You treat defeated enemies," she whispered. "We treat injured people," Jake corrected. "There's a difference." He loaded her into his personal shuttle, ignoring the protests from the security detail. The flight to the Valinian homeworld would take 6 hours. He set the autopilot and returned to check her wounds. The burns were severe, but not fatal with proper care. "Why?" Lyra asked as he applied synthetic skin to the worst areas. "Why surrender your tactical advantage?" "You could demand anything." "My people would pay billions for my safe return." Jake met her golden eyes. "Is that what you would do? Ransom prisoners?" "Yes." The answer was immediate, honest. "It is the logical conclusion to war. The victor claims spoils. Maybe that's why you lost." Her expression hardened. "We lost because your species fights like madmen. You sacrifice ships to save individual soldiers. You retreat from winning positions to recover wounded. You broadcast your supply routes. You are predictable and foolish. And yet here we are," Jake said mildly, sealing the last wound, "with your entire fleet in our hands and your empire suing for peace." Lyra looked away. "I do not understand your kind. Join the club." "Half the time we don't understand ourselves." The shuttle hummed through the void between worlds. Jake replayed the final battle in his mind, as he had 1,000 times already. The Valinian fleet had fought with cold precision, every move calculated for maximum efficiency. They had been winning on paper, their formation flawless, their tactics textbook perfect. Then his task force had done the human thing. They had broken formation to screen damaged vessels. They had wasted ammunition, providing covering fire for escape pods. They had transmitted in clear language that any Valinian who ejected would be recovered safely. The Valinian fleet had faltered. Their perfect machine logic had encountered a paradox it could not process, an enemy that valued individual life over tactical advantage. In that moment of confusion, Jake's forces had struck, targeting command ships with precision that their own scattered formation should have made impossible. Individual human commanders, freed from rigid hierarchy, had adapted faster than the Valinian battle network could compensate. It was not superior numbers or technology that had won the war. It was the stubborn human refusal to treat war as a pure calculation of losses and gains. "Your empire will rebuild," Jake said, breaking the silence. "This peace doesn't have to be another pause between conflicts. Your politicians will ensure generous terms? Our politicians will argue for months and accomplish nothing useful," Jake said. "But soldiers like us can start building something better right now." Lyra studied him with calculating eyes. "You believe words between enemies can matter?" "I believe that every lasting peace started with someone choosing to be less terrible than they had the power to be." The Valinian home world appeared ahead, a blue-green jewel wrapped in defense platforms that had already powered down their weapons. Jake received immediate hails from 14 different Valinian authorities, all demanding information about their princess. "Tell them I'm bringing you to the Imperial Palace," Jake said. "Personally. They will see it as insult," Lyra warned. "The enemy commander delivering me like a prize. Or they'll see it as a gesture of good faith." Jake guided the shuttle toward the planet. "Either way, I'm not handing you off to some middleman who'll turn this into a political circus." Atmospheric entry shook the small craft. Jake had never been to the Valinian home world, had only seen it in tactical briefings, marked with potential strike zones. Now he descended toward a city of crystalline towers that caught the light of 3 moons, beautiful and utterly foreign. The Imperial landing field was surrounded by Valinian military, their weapons lowered, but their postures tense. Jake sat down gently and opened the shuttle bay, still carrying Lyra in his arms. The assembled crowd fell silent. An elderly Valinian in elaborate robes stepped forward. "I am Lord Kelvin, regent to the Emperor. Release the princess immediately." "She needs immediate medical attention," Jake said. "Where's your trauma center? You dare give orders here?" "I dare try to keep your princess from dying of shock while you recite protocols." Jake's voice carried across the field. "Someone point me to a doctor, or explain to your emperor why you let her die for etiquette." A younger Valenian in medical insignia rushed forward, gesturing to a nearby building. Jake followed without waiting for permission, leaving the regent sputtering behind him. He placed Lyra on the medical bed carefully, then stepped back as Valinian doctors swarmed around her. "You should not have come here," Lyra said as they worked. "Your own people will call it weakness." "Let them. I've got bigger concerns than looking tough." "Like what?" "Like making sure the next generation doesn't have to fight this same war over again." Jake moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, you fought well. If circumstances were different, I think we'd have gotten along." Something shifted in Lyra's expression, a crack in her imperial composure. "Commander Morrison, when the formal surrender is signed, request me as the Valinian liaison. Tell your politicians it is a demand from our side." "Why?" "Because you are right. Soldiers who fought each other honestly can build better than politicians who only speak in lies." She met his eyes. "And because I think humans may have something to teach us about the value of illogical choices." Jake nodded slowly. "I'll make it happen." He walked back through the Imperial Palace, past guards who now watched him with something other than hatred. The shuttle lifted into the twilight sky, leaving the Valinian world behind. His comm exploded with angry messages from his own command, demanding explanations for his unauthorized actions. Jake ignored them all and opened a channel to his lieutenant. "Harris, draft a proposal." I want Princess Lyra assigned as permanent liaison to our diplomatic corps. Make it sound like we're getting a concession from them. Sir, are you sure? I'm sure that war is easier than peace. And that's exactly why we need people who understand both. Jake watched the stars appear above him. We just spent 3 years trying to kill each other. Now we get to spend the next 30 years trying to build something better. I'd rather start with someone who knows what the alternative costs. The comm was quiet for a moment. Understood, sir. I'll have the proposal ready for the peace talks. Jake set course for his flagship, his mind already working through the complex negotiations ahead. Behind him, on a world his people had nearly destroyed, a princess who had commanded armies against humanity lay recovering, already planning how to turn enemies into something resembling allies. It was imperfect and messy and completely illogical, which meant, by human standards, it had a decent chance of actually working.